A construction worker made a discovery that was about to shake the foundations of world archaeology and expose a conspiracy of silence that would last for years. During a routine excavation at a construction site in Turkey, he stumbled upon something that defied all scientific logic: a 5,000-year-old winged giant skeleton with characteristics that seemed to come directly from humanity's oldest legends. What began as just another day at work transformed into a dark journey through impossible discoveries and truths so disturbing that a renowned scientist categorically refused to speak about them publicly. This titanic skeleton wasn't just large. It possessed extended wings and an anatomical structure that evoked the mythological beings of ancient civilizations. But why was something so extraordinary buried in silence? And what powerful forces are willing to suppress evidence that could revolutionize our understanding of human history and the origins of our oldest legends? This is the story of a winged giant that no one wants you to know about. It was a typical October morning in the small town of Nevşehir, in the central region of Turkey. Mehmet Özkan, a 42-year-old construction worker, arrived at the construction site at 6 in the morning, as he had been doing for more than 2 decades. The project was simple: build the foundations for a new residential complex near the famous archaeological site of Cappadocia. Nothing indicated that this would be the day when his life and possibly humanity's understanding of its own history would be transformed forever. Mehmet had been operating hydraulic excavators for 15 years and knew well the rocky terrain of the region. Cappadocia was famous for its volcanic formations and underground cities, so it was not uncommon to find cavities or ancient structures during excavations. The region held secrets in every layer of earth, from Byzantine churches carved into rock faces to entire subterranean civilizations that had housed thousands of people centuries ago. But when the machine reached approximately 8 meters deep that morning, something different happened. The equipment shook strangely, as if it had hit something solid and unexpected, sending vibrations through the entire frame that Mehmet had never experienced in his years of operation. Initially, Mehmet thought he had found a large rock formation, or perhaps part of an ancient underground structure. The area was notorious for such discoveries, and it was standard protocol to stop work and call local archaeologists whenever something suspicious was discovered. But when he climbed down from his excavator to examine more closely what lay exposed in the freshly turned earth, what he saw left him completely speechless and would haunt his dreams for the rest of his life. Emerging from the dark, mineral-rich soil was what appeared to be a bone of impossible proportions. It was not just large, it was absolutely colossal, defying every expectation of what should exist beneath the Turkish countryside. The bone structure had a yellowish, almost amber coloration characteristic of ancient fossils, but its shape defied any known anatomical logic that Mehmet could comprehend. It was clearly a rib bone, but it measured almost 2 meters in length and had a thickness that suggested it belonged to a creature of absolutely epic dimensions. The bone appeared to be part of a much larger skeletal structure, and as Mehmet carefully brushed away more dirt with his hands, trembling with a mixture of excitement and inexplicable dread, more bones became visible. These were not scattered remains, but appeared to be part of a complete, articulated skeleton lying in what seemed to be a deliberate burial position. The preservation was remarkable, suggesting that whatever forces had kept this creature hidden for millennia had done so under very specific conditions. Mehmet immediately stopped all work and contacted his site supervisor, who in turn notified the local archaeological authorities. Within 2 hours, an emergency team from the Nevşehir Archaeological Museum was on site, led by Dr. Ahmet Kaya, the chief archaeologist. Dr. Kaya initially assumed they were dealing with fossilized remains of some prehistoric animal, perhaps a mammoth or other extinct megafauna that had once roamed the Anatolian plains thousands of years ago. But as the careful, methodical excavation proceeded over the following days, with brushes and small tools replacing the heavy machinery, it became increasingly clear that this was something much more extraordinary than anyone had initially imagined. The bones did not belong to any known animal species, extinct or otherwise. The structure was unmistakably humanoid, but on a scale that defied all scientific understanding. The skeleton, when finally exposed in its complete entirety after 3 days of painstaking work, measured an astounding 4.8 meters in height. This measurement alone would have been revolutionary, as human giants of such proportion existed only in the realm of legends. But what truly left the archaeological team in profound shock was the discovery of additional bone structures emerging from the skeleton's shoulder blade region, structures that could only be described as wings. The wing structures were not some aberrant growth or deformity, but clearly functional appendages designed for flight. They measured approximately 3.2 meters in wingspan each, creating a total span that would have exceeded 10 meters when fully extended. The bone structure was incredibly complex, resembling simultaneously the wing bones of large bats and birds, but scaled up and adapted to support the weight of a massive humanoid creature. The joints showed clear articulation points, and the bone density suggested they had been capable of supporting not just the creature's weight, but generating the force necessary for actual flight. Dr. Kaya immediately understood that he was facing something that would challenge the very foundations of paleontology and archaeology. This was not simply an unusual find, but a discovery that could potentially rewrite textbooks. The first carbon-14 dating tests indicated an age of approximately 5,000 years, placing the creature firmly in the late Neolithic period, long before the first known major civilizations of the region had developed writing systems or sophisticated burial practices. The team worked in complete secrecy during the first several weeks of analysis and documentation. Dr. Kaya understood that premature release of information about such an extraordinary find could lead to chaos, both in the scientific community and among the general public. He contacted trusted colleagues at international universities, sending carefully selected photographs and preliminary data to experts in paleontology, anatomy, and ancient history. The initial reaction was universally one of skepticism, with many colleagues assuming the images were fabricated. However, this skepticism quickly transformed into intense scientific interest when the authenticity of the evidence became increasingly apparent. Dr. Elena Marchetti, a renowned paleoanthropologist from the University of Rome, flew to Turkey specifically to examine the remains in person. Her first reaction was one of absolute amazement, mixed with what she described as scientific terror. In her carefully recorded words, "We are looking at something that should not exist according to everything we understand about biology and evolution. Every test we perform confirms the authenticity of these remains, but the reality contradicts everything we know about human evolution and anatomy." It was Dr. Marchetti who first suggested that the discovery should be kept strictly confidential until a more complete understanding could be achieved. She argued that the premature release of such information could cause widespread religious and scientific panic, potentially destabilizing established belief systems. Her recommendation was that a small, trusted team of international experts should be assembled to conduct thorough research before any public announcement was made. What began as reasonable scientific caution quickly transformed into something far more sinister. Within a month of the initial discovery, Turkish government authorities took complete control of the excavation site. The location was immediately fenced off with high-security barriers, and declared a restricted national security zone, with armed guards posted to prevent unauthorized access. Mehmet Özkan and all construction workers present during the discovery were required to sign extensive confidentiality agreements under threat of serious criminal prosecution. Dr. Kaya and his entire research team were transferred to a secretive government research facility in a heavily secured compound on the outskirts of Ankara. There, under constant government and military supervision, they were permitted to continue their studies, but it quickly became apparent that they no longer had any real control over their research. Each discovery, every test result, every photograph and measurement was immediately classified as state-secret material. Additional tests revealed even more disturbing aspects of the creature they were studying. DNA analysis, although limited due to the advanced age of the organic material, suggested genetic markers that were partially human but contained sequences that did not correspond to any known species on Earth. The results implied genetic complexity that seemed to incorporate elements from multiple species in combinations that should have been biologically impossible. The cranial structure, while proportionally similar to human skull architecture, possessed internal capacity that suggested brain volume almost twice that of modern humans. Even more intriguing was the discovery of sophisticated artifacts deliberately buried alongside the skeletal remains. These were not simple stone tools, but complex metal objects crafted from alloys that included elements and combinations that should not have existed in the region 5,000 years ago. The metallurgical analysis revealed techniques and materials that suggested a level of technological advancement far beyond anything known from the Neolithic period. One of the artifacts was unmistakably a weapon, featuring intricate inscriptions in a completely unknown writing system that bore no resemblance to any documented ancient language. After 6 months of intensive but heavily restricted research, something truly extraordinary occurred. Dr. Kaya arrived at the government laboratory one morning to discover that all of the skeletal remains, every single artifact, and even the carefully preserved soil samples had been completely removed during the night, without any advance notice or explanation. The laboratory spaces had been thoroughly cleaned and sterilized, leaving no trace of the months of research that had been conducted there. When Dr. Kaya demanded explanations from the government officials overseeing the project, he was curtly informed that the research had been reclassified at the highest levels of national security, and that his participation was no longer required. No further information was provided, and his security clearance was immediately revoked. Dr. Marchetti, who had returned to Italy but maintained regular communication with the Turkish research team, desperately attempted to obtain information about what had happened. Her emails went unanswered, her telephone calls were not returned, and official inquiries through diplomatic channels were met with stonewalling. When she attempted to travel back to Turkey to investigate personally, she was informed at the airport that her entry visa had been permanently revoked for national security reasons. The original discovery site was rapidly obliterated. Industrial equipment worked around the clock to fill in the excavation with concrete and steel reinforcement, and construction of the planned residential complex proceeded exactly as if nothing extraordinary had ever been discovered there. The entire area was transformed into a completely ordinary suburban neighborhood, with no indication that one of the most significant archaeological discoveries in human history had taken place beneath the foundations. Mehmet Özkan continued working in construction throughout the region, but colleagues and family members noticed profound changes in his personality and behavior. He became increasingly withdrawn, somber, and evasive about his work and experiences. On the rare occasions when someone mentioned the discovery, he would simply say with haunted eyes, "Some things are better left buried where they belong." In the years that followed, Dr. Kaya made numerous attempts to bring his discovery to public attention. He prepared detailed scientific articles, documenting every aspect of the discovery, compiled extensive photographic evidence, and attempted to publish his findings in respected archaeological journals. However, every single attempt was systematically blocked through legal interference, threats of lawsuits for breach of confidentiality, and coordinated efforts to discredit his work and professional reputation. His academic career was systematically destroyed through a campaign of professional sabotage that included false accusations of research misconduct, blocked funding applications, and isolation from the international archaeological community. Eventually, he lost his position at the university and was effectively blacklisted from academic work anywhere. In 2019, Dr. Kaya made one final, desperate attempt to expose the truth about his discovery to the world. He secretly contacted investigative journalists from several international news organizations and attempted to organize a press conference where he planned to present all of his evidence about the winged giant discovery. However, just 3 days before the scheduled press conference, he died suddenly and unexpectedly of what was officially reported as a massive heart attack. Dr. Kaya was only 54 years old at the time of his death and had no known history of heart problems or cardiovascular disease. His family members insisted that he had appeared to be in good health and spirits, though they acknowledged that he had been under considerable stress due to what they described as unspecified professional pressures and legal threats. Dr. Marchetti, who remains alive and active in academic circles to this day, continues to categorically refuse to discuss the Turkish discovery or her involvement in its initial analysis. When approached by researchers, journalists, or anyone interested in learning more about what she witnessed, she provides only a brief, standard response. There are discoveries that humanity is not ready to face, and some truths are too dangerous to be shared publicly. The discovery of what became known in secret circles as the Nevşehir winged giant raises profound questions that extend far beyond traditional archaeology or paleontology. If the remains were authentic, and all available evidence strongly suggests that they were, the discovery represents a fundamental challenge to our basic understanding of human history, biological development, and the relationship between scientific fact and mythological traditions. Virtually every ancient civilization that has left written records contains detailed legends and stories about winged giants who once lived among humans or interacted with human societies. The Anunnaki of ancient Mesopotamian mythology, the Nephilim described in Judeo-Christian religious traditions, the mighty Titans of Greek mythology, and the powerful winged divas found in Hindu religious texts all describe beings of impossible physical stature who possessed the ability to fly and wielded power far beyond normal human capabilities. The Turkish discovery suggests that these widespread mythological accounts may not have been purely imaginary stories or allegorical teachings, but rather represent collective cultural memories of actual encounters with such creatures that existed in the distant past. This possibility has profound implications for how we understand the development of human civilization, religion, and our species' relationship with other forms of intelligent life. The religious and philosophical implications of such a discovery are equally profound and potentially destabilizing to established belief systems. If winged giants actually existed as physical beings in the ancient world, this would validate specific aspects of numerous religious texts that have been interpreted by modern scholars as purely allegorical rather than literal historical accounts. From a purely scientific perspective, the existence of such creatures challenges our fundamental understanding of evolution, genetics, and biomechanics. How could a humanoid creature of such massive size have evolved naturally within Earth's gravitational and atmospheric conditions? What evolutionary pressures could have led to the development of functional wings on a creature with an essentially human body plan? How could such wings have actually generated sufficient lift to enable flight for a creature weighing potentially several hundred kilograms. Perhaps most importantly, if one such specimen existed, basic principles of biology and reproduction suggest that there must have been an entire population of such beings, raising the question of where the rest of their remains might be located and whether other similar discoveries have been made and subsequently suppressed. Independent research conducted in the years following the Turkish incident has revealed that the Nevşehir discovery was far from an isolated case. Careful investigation of archaeological records from dozens of countries around the world has uncovered consistent patterns of reports describing the discovery of unusually large human skeletal remains that were subsequently confiscated by government authorities or mysteriously disappeared from museum collections. These cases follow remarkably similar patterns: initial discovery by construction workers, farmers, or local archaeologists, followed by brief periods of scientific interest and investigation, then rapid intervention by government authorities, and complete suppression of all evidence and documentation. The consistency of these patterns across different countries, time periods, and political systems suggests coordinated international efforts to prevent such discoveries from reaching public attention. A former employee of the Smithsonian Institution, speaking on condition of anonymity, has admitted that the institution maintains what he described as a special collection of anomalous human remains, including several examples of gigantic skeletal material that have never been publicly displayed, scientifically studied, or even acknowledged to exist. According to this source, such discoveries are considered too sensitive for public knowledge due to their potential to disrupt established scientific and religious paradigms. Documents obtained through Freedom of Information requests suggest the existence of informal international protocols among major museums, universities, and research institutions for the systematic suppression of archaeological evidence that might challenge accepted historical narratives. This coordinated suppression allegedly extends to findings that could destabilize religious beliefs, challenge evolutionary theory, or suggest the existence of advanced ancient civilizations or non-human intelligent beings. Mehmet Özkan continued working in construction for 5 additional years following his life-changing discovery, but co-workers and family members noted significant changes in his personality and mental state. He frequently appeared troubled by disturbing memories and was often observed talking to himself during work. His sleep was reportedly troubled by recurring nightmares that he refused to discuss in detail. In 2021, while dying of pancreatic cancer, Mehmet made an extraordinary deathbed confession to his eldest son that revealed the depth of psychological trauma the discovery had caused him. In whispered words filled with genuine terror, he said, "That thing I found was not natural, not from God or any God that loves humanity. It was something different, something that should never have existed on this earth. Sometimes I still dream about those empty eye sockets staring at me from the dark soil, and I wake up terrified about what other things might be buried out there, waiting to be found." His son, Emre Özkan, initially kept this confession private, but years later began his own investigation into what his father had discovered. His research led him into a complex network of people around the world who claimed to have made similar discoveries or witnessed comparable cover-ups, many of whom had been silenced through threats, legal action, or worse. Several individuals he attempted to contact had died under circumstances that their families considered suspicious. Today, nearly a decade after the initial discovery in Nevşehir, the truth about the winged giant remains buried under multiple layers of official secrecy, government suppression, and institutional denial. However, a growing international network of independent researchers, investigative journalists, and advocates for scientific transparency continues working to expose what they believe represents one of the most significant cover-ups in modern history. These researchers argue that humanity has a fundamental right to know the truth about its own history and origins, regardless of how disturbing or destabilizing such knowledge might prove to be. They contend that if winged giants actually existed as physical beings in the ancient world, this represents a lost chapter of human development that could revolutionize our understanding of evolution, religion, ancient technology, and our species' place in the broader universe. The Nev-Shahir case also raises urgent questions about the control and manipulation of scientific knowledge in the modern world. If evidence as extraordinary and significant as a winged giant skeleton can be completely suppressed and eliminated from public awareness, what other crucial discoveries might have been similarly hidden from public knowledge? How many other revolutionary findings about human history, ancient civilizations, or non-human intelligence have been deliberately concealed by powerful interests operating beyond public scrutiny? The story serves as a deeply disturbing reminder that our understanding of history, evolution, and human development may be fundamentally incomplete and deliberately distorted. In an era supposedly characterized by global information sharing and scientific transparency, the ability to completely suppress evidence of such profound significance reveals the existence of powerful forces operating entirely outside public accountability. Mehmet Özkan, a simple construction worker with no particular interest in archaeology or ancient mysteries, accidentally stumbled upon something that could have rewritten every textbook about human history and fundamentally altered our species' understanding of its own past. Instead of being celebrated as one of the most important discoveries in human history, his find was buried even more deeply than the ancient remains themselves. But like all suppressed truths, the story of the winged giant continues to haunt those who know about it and inspire others to continue searching for answers. The discovery may have been physically destroyed and officially denied, but its shadow continues to cast doubt on accepted historical narratives and reminds us that there may be crucial truths about our past that remain hidden from us. The fundamental question remains: how many other secrets of comparable importance are buried beneath our feet, concealed in private collections, or locked away in classified government files? And when the next extraordinary discovery inevitably occurs, will it too be destined for suppression and denial? Or will we finally develop the courage necessary to face potentially disturbing truths about our mysterious past? The winged giant of Nev-Shahir may be physically lost forever, destroyed by those who feared its implications, but its legacy continues to serve as a constant reminder that there may be profound truths about who we are and where we came from that remain deliberately hidden from us.